Hello and welcome back. In the last video we paid real close attention at the map. You see I've rubbed out a little bit because it was getting a bit too messy, but this is what we were paying really close attention to. Okay, let's scroll down onto the third page. So this is part 3. Okay, let's read from there. These were some of the other places where agriculture developed. Agriculture is basically the food that they growed, the hunting that they did, all the farming that they did, all that comes under agriculture. The places where rice was first grown are to the north of the Vindhyas. Okay, so that's why I said pay real close attention to this map right here. So the Vindhyas, where are the Vindhyas? Vindhyas. Vindhyas. Okay, it should be somewhere there. I can't find it at the moment, but so the north of the Vindhyas, let's see. The places where rice was first grown are to the north of the Vindhyas. Just remember that, okay? Also, any wanderings, you might want to have a look at that, but I don't have any wanderings at the moment, but you might, so comment down below. Trace the river Indus and its tributaries. So in the last video, we kind of did touch on that. So this was the Indus River flowing into Ravi, Bees, Chenab, and Jhelum and Kabul. And this one was one. This one was literally Indus. They counted that one as Indus. So that's one right there. Okay, now if you don't know what tributaries are, they're just smaller rivers that flow to a larger river. So Ravi, we looked at Chenab, they are all the tributaries of Indus. About 4,700 years ago, some of the earliest cities flourished on the banks of these rivers. Later, about 2,500 years ago, cities developed on the banks of the Ganga and its tributaries again along the side of the sea or the sea coast. So let's explain that a little bit over here. About 4,700 years ago, last time we looked at 8,000 years ago. Up on the first page we looked at 8,000 years ago, I'm pretty sure. Somewhere here, yeah, that part really underlined. That was wheat and barley. But then 4,700 years ago, some of the earliest cities. So before we were learning about the villages, now there are cities as well. So they're really getting a bit advanced right there. Cities flourished on the banks of these rivers. Later, about 2,500 years ago, cities developed on the banks of Ganga and its tributaries and along the sea coasts. So basically, we learned in the first part, we learned that why are big cities near big water bodies? Because they can get water, they can do trade, they can do all those sorts of stuff. So I'm gonna go a little bit fast over here because it's quite a long to read. Look at the Ganga and its tributaries called the Sun. Let's go up. We looked at the Sun River right there, and this is Ganga flowing right here. Yeah, there are more tributaries over here. Ganga also flows into Yamuna, and then it flows into Chambal and all those things. So that's Ganga River right there. Where are we? There. In ancient times, the area along these rivers to the south of Ganga was known as Magadha, now lying in the state of Bihar. So on the south of Ganga was known as Magad, now lying in the state of Bihar. Its rulers were very powerful and set up a large kingdom. So we were learning about cities, now we're learning about kingdoms. Kingdoms were set up in other parts of the country as well. Throughout, people traveled from one part of the subcontinent to another. The hills and high mountains, including Himalayas, deserts, rivers and seas made journeys dangerous at times because there were hills and high mountains. They only had to walk or they had animals to ride on, and the animals weren't that helpful either at those dangerous times. But they were never impossible, so keep that at the back of your head. Even though something looks hard, it is never impossible. Maybe some things that are kind of silly to think about can be impossible, but most of the stuff that you think and it's reasonable why you're thinking is normally possible. It's never impossible. So men and women moved into search of livelihood, also also to escape from natural disasters like flood or droughts. Sometimes men marched in armies, conquering other lands. So now this is where war starts. So this is in 2,500 years ago. Okay, so 4,700 years ago, earliest cities, maybe not that developed cities, but still cities. They had big buildings, maybe not that big as we have today, but bigger. But smaller, I mean. Okay. Also to escape from natural disasters like flood or droughts. So remember we had a wondering before that why did people have to move throughout all the time? Well, that's basically about natural disasters like flood or droughts. Sometimes men marched in armies, so now they're conquering other lands. Besides, the merchant traveled with caravans or ships, carrying valuable goods from place to place. And religious teachers walked from village to village, town to town, stopping to offer instructions and advice on the way. Finally, people perhaps traveled driven by a spirit of adventure, wanting to discover new and exciting places. All these led to this sharing of ideas between people. So they're just telling how they moved and they developed themselves right here. They were carrying valuable goods from place to place. They were starting to trade. They had caravans now and ships. They had ships and they shared ideas which led to really development of the world. Why do people travel nowadays? Look at map one once more. Let's look at it. Let's obey the book. Okay, we looked at it. We looked at all the seas. We looked at the sea right there. We looked at the hills. We have the rivers sorted. Now let's actually pay attention and think about why they asked us to move. So maybe they still had some harsh weather. Maybe they had droughts. Maybe they wanted to just trade, right? Why do we move? We want to explore. One of the reasons is that, right? Relate this book back to yourselves, then you will know what they're really talking about. Okay, let's move down. Oh, many lines, ignore that, please. Hills, mountains, and seas form the natural frontiers of the subcontinent. While it was difficult to cross these frontiers, so the frontiers we just talked about that there, those who wanted could and did scale the mountains and cross the seas. People from across the frontiers also came into the subcontinent and settled here. So that was part 3 of what, where, how, and when. We have touched on what happened, where it happened, how happened and when happened. We're gonna go a bit more in the depth of that in the coming parts. So stay tuned and yeah, bye. Revise, okay?